Okay. Oh, Okay. My semester project is going to be about the analysis of the impact poverty has on children and their success, and how that kind of interlocks with Utah foster care. So this is my schedule for this presentation. We're going to start first with a little bit about the interviewee and the agency, and then we're going to go over my research article 1, and then number 2, and then we'll dive deeper into Utah foster care. So this is my interviewee. This is Nikki McKay. She is awesome. She is the CEO of Utah Foster Care. She also co-owns 3 local Utah restaurants. 2 of them are in Draper, one of them's in St. George. This year, she was named CEO of the Year by Utah Business Magazine. She got her social work degree from Westminster. I believe she got her bachelor's from the University of Phoenix. But she started at Utah Foster Care as a development director, and now she is the leader and CEO. She's awesome. Okay, these were the questions that I asked her. Below, I have a little shameless link. Oh, I might be covering it. Of Utah Foster Care's Instagram. It's just Utah Foster Care. And then the URL is utahfostercare.org, all lowercase. So these were the questions I asked her. How do you think poverty impacts the foster system? Do you worry about the impacts of mandatory reporting? What do you see from this, pros and cons? What systems do we have in place right now that help minority and poor children escape poverty? And are there welfare acts in other states you wish we could bring to Utah? What is the benefit of not having Utah Foster Care as a government program? I'm not sure if you guys knew this, but Utah Foster Care is an independent nonprofit business, not a government program, not like a public program like a school. So, and also, how do you compartmentalize cases? What efforts do you take to keep your work and personal life separate? Okay, bouncing on to our first research article. I got this one from the American Medical Association, specifically for pediatrics. It's the Association Between Childhood Poverty, Brain Development, and Academic Achievement. So what they did is they just took a bunch of brain scans from developing children aged 4 to 22 years old and paired them with interviews of same subjects, just to kind of like test the cognitive ability while also comparing that to the brain scans that they had. And what they were trying to find is if there was a correlation between income and brain development. So you can't really see it with this chart. I attach it, and our next slide is a little bit bigger, but it's still pretty blurry. But what you can see is that I actually don't think you can interpret it from this chart. It just looks like a whole bunch of numbers. But what they found was that children who grow up experiencing poverty or come from low-income families or communities that are suffering economically have less gray matter in their brain. It actually impacts their development, which I just thought was so crazy. And then my second research article, we're trying to find the link between, it says, residential instability and lower academic achievement. So what they found is that there is a big correlation, and Nikki McKay kind of touched on this in her interview when I asked her how poverty impacts foster care. She talked about how people who are in poverty people who are in foster care typically are at or below the poverty line, which is really sad. And also a hard cycle to break. She noted how, once that cycle gets going, it turns into kind of a generational thing where, parents are setting up and they're not super financially well off. the children tend to be that way too. And then that's just like a cascading effect through multiple generations. Over here, you can see 30 to 35% less likely to enroll in college, 60 to 68% less likely to graduate from college, compared to children who never move. So this statistic is about kids who have housing instability, children who are experiencing homelessness and have to move around a lot, or just kids who have to move around a lot in general. But we tend to see poor educational outcomes for children who move for negative reasons. And this relates to child welfare because of how important it is to create stability for children to ensure their success. So, talking about Utah Foster Care is a private corporation. It's nonprofit. It came to be in 1999. So, let's see. It's been around for 23 years, 24. So, yeah, but the good thing about Utah Foster Care being a private organization, Nikki was telling me about this, is that they are allowed to make their own fundraising. They don't have to rely on state allotted funds. They can partner with businesses, accept donations, and do other kind of charity work like that and raise a lot more money. They have about 50 plus employees across 3 locations in Utah. Their headquarters are in Murray, which is right by my house, which is super fun. Their mission statement is Utah Foster Care serves Utah's children by finding, educating, and nurturing families to meet the needs of children in foster care. I also asked her, how do you compartmentalize what efforts do you take to keep your work and personal life separate? She noted that this is something that's really difficult. It's something that I worry about going into social work because I can get really attached to things. But she mentioned that as the leader of Utah Foster Care, she tries to create opportunities for her staff members to take care of themselves. She offers meditation, breath work, and tries to foster connection with each other, which I think is really cool. Here are some of the statistics that they have on their website, just kind of about foster care in general. Something that really stood out to me is this statistic. Oh, I might be covering it. But it says substance use disorder is a contributing factor in 79.01% of children entering foster care. I thought that was a crazy statistic. Also, you can see kind of down here that 90% of children reunified with their families did not come back into foster care the following year, which I think is really great because, you're seeing kind of a lot of kids in foster care. I mean, 2,123. That's a lot of kids. But having 90% of them back with their families and not re-entering foster care, I think proves that UFC is really successful. They're really good at their jobs. So I think that's awesome. Here is kind of a breakdown of their expenses. I got this cute little pie chart from the Better Business Bureau. You can see that they spend the smallest amount of money on fundraising, and then next is administrative, which I assume is which relates to payroll, I'm sure. And then 84% goes down to the programs, meaning that the money that they're raising, 84% of it goes back to the kids and the families and our awesome foster families and foster parents. I couldn't find an exact salary statistic. Nikki said it kind of varies between position and also the education that you have. They have tons of different positions that they utilize within Utah Foster Care. I have them listed. In the U.S., average foster care social worker is about 49,000, a little bit over. And specifically in Utah, this is foster care is below that, which is a little bit tragic, but kind of understandable because of this pie chart and how much is feeding back into the communities instead of going into that administrative slice. So I rated it out of a 4 out of 5 because I think that the work that Utah Foster Care does is awesome. I think that they're a great company with a great purpose, and I would be interested in working as a social worker for Utah Foster Care, despite that salary being a little bit lower than the national average. And then this is my references page. I've got my 2 articles linked, and then from the Better Business Bureau and stuff like that. So, yeah, thanks for tagging along to my project. Thank you. Okay, and then I just wanted to come on here and touch back a little bit more about my interview with Nikki. I know there were a couple questions I didn't quite go over in my presentation. So one of the things that we talked about was welfare acts in Utah and what she wishes we could bring to Utah. One of the things that she mentioned right now is a federal guideline called Family First, which allows for working with families and children while trying to keep them together, trying to keep them all in the same home, trying to get things together, guiding them to food stamps, affordable housing, job training, and other things like that. So, also, we have programs for children aging out of foster care to help them be successful in their adult lives despite the lack of stability in their childhood, which I bet is really impactful. So I think that having that support is really awesome. Something she wishes that we could bring to Utah that she's seen in other states is childcare assistance for foster families. If you follow their Instagram, you'll see kind of noted a lot that they want to have people trained for like babysitting purposes because fostering a child is kind of a lot emotionally. They want to be able to give those foster parents a break so that they continue to want to foster. It's important to give those people their personal time, let them have a break, and kind of reward them for the work that they're doing. And we need more people for that. So, yeah. Another thing that she noted, I asked her about pros and cons of mandatory reporting, just because in my mind, I can kind of see mandatory reporting being a problem for minorities. She mentioned that a large portion of children in foster care are, let's see, sorry, I have my notes right here, are Latino or Latinx. And despite having that population is a lower percentage of our state population, she said that the general population of Latinos in Utah is around 16%, and the percentage of Latino youth in foster care in Utah is 25%, which is pretty higher. Pretty crazy. So if the money that would be used on taking care of children within the foster care system was put into prevention services, that could make a big impact, or like I noted before, things like that. But circling back to the mandatory reporting, I worry about that because there's kind of a stigma. I think a lot of people, I don't want to generalize, but I could see where maybe a stigma could play into that. So that's where I was coming from, worrying kind of about that mandatory reporting issue, but she couldn't think of anything. She said it was an interesting question, but she thinks that mandatory reporting is good because it gives us more opportunities to take care of more children. If that makes sense. She said that we should err on the side of caution, and reporting can be helpful for getting families the services that they need. So I loved interviewing Nikki. I think Nikki McKay is awesome, and Utah Foster Care is awesome. This was a fun project, and I learned a lot. So thank you.